Buckle up. Here comes the bumpiest snap judgments of the season. What a way to end 2023. That's Bill Landis, Jeremy Birmingham. I am Austin Ward. We are at AT&T Stadium after the Cotton Bowl, which was not a great viewing experience. Missouri won 14-3, and I don't know what else to say, Bill. Just jump in and get going.
Yeah, it was like kind of a gross game. Missouri found a way with a couple of late drives, which I don't really like. You can put them on Ohio State's defense, I guess. Like Ohio State's defense, as Ryan Day said, certainly played well enough for Ohio State to win this game, and you almost feel bad for them, right? You don't. If the threshold is shut them out, please, or we don't win, like that's an impossible threshold to live up to. So it was odd. Ohio State's offensive coaching staff, I don't know what the hell they did for the last month, because it didn't seem like they really had any idea what they wanted to do in this game, even before Devin Brown got injured, and then they get thrown the curveball of Devin getting injured, and I don't know, Lincoln Kienholz is a young guy, I suppose, and I want to be respectful of that, but it didn't really seem like they were trying to put him in situations to succeed, and special teams was a mess. This did not look like a football team that had a month prepared to play Missouri tonight.
It looked like an offense missing a lot of its key parts, and some of that is obviously Marvin Harrison. Some of that's Julian Fleming, a guy who's been undervalued all year. Some of it's Chip Trayanum, who is maybe the most versatile and important player on the offense, not named Marvin Harrison. Some of that is because the coaching staff decided to bring in two new offensive linemen, and Matthew Jones at
Make
center,
two changes
for a game that you knew you were going to have a first-time starting quarterback. And even in the best-case scenario, that's not a good decision. Because Carson Hinsman had a couple bad weeks of practice, is what Ryan Day said. And the truth is, I don't personally mind that, in a vacuum. I think Ohio State is going to go into this offseason with the mindset of everything is open. Okay, that center job is not Carson Hinsman's. There's no reason to protect him and play him today if that center job isn't his. So I actually kind of applaud that, because it's showing some sense of this. The status quo doesn't have to be the status quo. But Enoch Vamahi couldn't block anyone.
Yeah.
Josh Fryer played a terrible game, but also Missouri's coaching staff knew Ohio State was going to be in a position with a first-time starting quarterback, and they were super aggressive. And all week long we talked about how Ohio State had to be aggressive, and they came out and were absolutely not just conservative, but it seemed to have no plan at all. And the idea that Lincoln Kienholz gets brought in when Devin Brown gets hurt because Tristan Gebbia can't run the read option, but then you don't run the read option,
yeah.
I'm having a tough time with some of the decisions. I'm not going to talk about a single player's performance beyond what I just said the rest of the show, because I think this is entirely on the coaching staff, and there needs to be probably bigger changes than we've discussed in the last month. And some of that is Ryan Day's his job. What is your job from now on? Are you the play caller? Are you the offensive coordinator? Or are you the head coach? Because if you're the head coach, that means there's some tough decisions that have to be made, and all of them are on his coaching staff.
So I'm not trying to have this both ways. I can't just say at the start of the month, it's an exhibition game, and the outcome is not going to be a referendum on Ryan Day or the program one way or the other, because the outcome doesn't actually change anything. But if they spend all month saying, well, hold up, you're wrong about that. The players want in. The coaching staff wants it to win. It's a springboard for 2024, and that's the way that you talk about it. Well, then that's the cost of doing business. That's the way you have to evaluate it. And there's just no world where that offensive plan, yes, you were going to assume that Devin Brown was going to be healthy enough to go out there and play it. Now, he wasn't. They talked about him being 100% on that high ankle sprain, and there was going to be no issue. That clearly was not the case. So that certainly made it more difficult. And they didn't have all the pieces. We know if you don't have Marvin Harrison Jr., a Heisman Trophy finalist, your offense and your passing attack is probably not going to be as good. But the plan that they chose with the personnel that they had for the last 3 weeks and 4 weeks, while they're saying, well, we're going to be close to full strength, guys want to play this game, they want to win it, I just cannot understand the offensive game plan and the special teams nonsense. There's just nothing would have been different if they fired Parker Fleming a month ago. Absolutely nothing. They could not have played any worse on special teams. These are the things that I'm talking about. You guys are sick of me saying it.
Justin Merkel had the best game of the season.
He punted well. He did punt well.
Yeah.
But that
Buckeyes pinned him inside of the 10 a couple times.
But that didn't even come close to overshadowing what happened with the penalties.
I'm trying to look at this from a holistic approach. What has to happen now? What happened in the last month is irrelevant. And I know what you're saying, and I completely agree. But like, if you think about these players, they played their asses off. And I'm telling you what, all
the
year
defense
long,
did.
I think the offense was playing hard. They just were not put in a position to win.
Parts of it. The offensive line played terribly.
Yeah, they were not put in a position to win. And I mean, I've harped all year long about the fact that there seems to be a lack of vocal leadership after, I think, the 7th play in a row inside of the 5-yard line in their own 5 when they got stuff for a loss of yardage. Ohio State calls a timeout. It was before Missouri's 15-yard penalty, and Ryan Day calls over and over. And Cade Stover jumped in the middle and basically berated the entire team. And Ryan Day stepped out. They got leadership tonight out of guys like Jack Sawyer. They got leadership out of Stover. I actually think this is a really positive experience for Lincoln Kienholz. I think that there's a lot of good that's going to come out of this, but today feels just disgusting.
I wanted to see some of that for myself, the way that you talked about, the being in the tunnel at halftime in the Big House. And so Bill and I came down after the game. We were able to get there by the time that, Ohio State was leaving the field. And that tunnel, I've never heard a football team be that quiet. Tommy Eichenberg tried to stop a few guys. He did not play. He wasn't able to because of the elbow injury. And he was hugging some guys and trying to lift spirits, give some hugs, and send them out on an encouraging note. But some bypassed it. 99.9% of the people did not say a single word on the way to the locker room. Eyes down, dejected. Few people, crying, which does tell you that they wanted to win the game and that they were playing very hard.
11 or 12 guys went in before the Singing of Carmen, Ohio. And Brian Hartline sent people in there to get them and bring them back. And those are the things that in previous season-ending losses have not happened. And so I am trying to find the positives in this. And this game was ugly, and it's going to leave a bad taste in people's mouths all year. I just, in talking to people inside of the players, the family lounge afterward, Josh Proctor in there crying, but the young guys, the Lincoln Kienholzes, the Brandon Innes's, those guys, that message from them was this is not happening again. And I feel bad for them because Bill, this is the point. The coaching staff let them down.
Yeah, I agree with that 100%.
The coaching staff let them down. Hero Canoe should have been on the field more often when Tyleik Williams clearly could not run anymore. He was being gassed. It is very warm in this building for some reason. And the coaching staff let them down. And that is hard to see in the last game of the year.
I thought the offensive coaches in particular let Ohio State down. I don't understand the offensive line stuff. If you think Carson Hinsman has not been playing well, or you want to make that switch at center, that's fine. I feel like we have enough body of work on Yannick Vamahi to know that he's just not very good. He's not a starting caliber player at Ohio State, but he's the guy you put in there when you have Tigger Shabola or you have Luke Montgomery.
You put in Tigger Shabola as your extra offensive lineman when you've been using Luke Montgomery in that role all year.
It's insane. It's insane to me. I don't – and no change throughout the game when clearly it wasn't working.
You put Caden McDonald in the backfield as a fullback and he doesn't block anything.
I don't.
He actually did. He sprung the first run from Travion. He had a second one where he made an extra effort. I thought that was inspired. I thought he played well in the limited works that he got. And I'm okay, well, maybe they will find something to overcome what was clearly a lack of confidence in the passing game overall. Health aside, anything aside, Ryan Day was not putting Devin Brown calling shots the same way that the offense was run throughout the year. We wanted to see that, right? At some extent, I did think they were going to try and run the ball, but you have to at least run the rest of the offense before you become too predictable. Okay, well, here it is. Here's going to be some of this stuff, and they've got a jumbo package. I'm okay, well, that'll be nice. Then it disappears. You don't ever go back to it. You decide that all you're ever going to do from there on is screen stuff with Lincoln Kienholz, where he's getting immediately heated up and pressure in his face and has nowhere to go with the football. Again, it is making the point both of you made. That was one of the few things where it's that's the coaching staff did do some work over the last couple of weeks because I haven't seen that before.
They had a moment at the start of the second half. Defense comes out 3 and out. Buckeyes get the ball at midfield. First pass plays to Xavier Johnson. They pick up 20-some yards. They're at the 30-yard line. They run the trick play after, which if Emeka Ibuka is a quarterback, it's a touchdown because he had Carnell Tate open.
Wouldn't you choose the guy who actually did play some quarterback?
That's what I saw. Brandon Innes on the field, and he was the guy who pitched it back to Emeka. I'm he's the guy who played quarterback. And the ball wasn't, it was not great thrown pass. He should have let him into the corner. And
Yeah, but what are you going to
criticize?
Right. So
it is what it is. But then you miss the field goal, and then any sense of like, hey, let's go get this win was gone after that. And then, Missouri was just plodding along. It's 3rd and 8 at their own 11-yard line when the Buckeyes have been shutting them on all day. They pick up a first down, and then they're off and running, because at that point you could just tell the defense, like, what do we have to do to get a little help?
It was the first time, I think might have been the first time in Ryan Day's head coaching career that he actually said the defense played well enough for us to win and it was the offense's fault, it's not the first time that has happened, but I think it's the first time that he's actually admitted it. So that was a breath of fresh air. Missouri was buried in its own territory a couple times and kind of ran its way to more comfortable space and then put a drive together. And Ohio State couldn't do that because their offensive line was bad. They couldn't block anybody. They got worked up front all game, which is, I don't know, like, what was Justin Fry doing for the last month? You made an offensive line switch, and then like you didn't have them ready to come out and play. And even your more veteran guys who played all year like didn't play very well. Josh Simmons got smoked a few times. Josh Fryer got smoked a few times. Like, it was a really bad game from Ohio State's offensive line against a defense that's like kind of good. It has some guys up front. Like, I'm not trying to say that Missouri's defense is terrible and like that shouldn't happen, but you should not get worked over the way that Ohio State got worked over. They wanted to come out here and try to run the ball, and their offensive line wasn't up to the task. And like, that's on the players, but it's also on the coaches that have to get them ready. And this was a bad day for Justin Fry.
Missouri deserves credit. They played a good football game. They played to their strengths. And whenever they got backed up, they just ran the quarterback. And that was keeping their offense going. And
that was like their whole offense for 3 quarters.
Right, Ohio State didn't do the same thing. Why are you – there was no called runs. I don't know if it's too dark.
It keeps getting darker in here.
There are no real called runs for Lincoln Keenholz. No called runs for Devin Brown, really. Like, what – if the idea coming into this is that the game plan is going to need to be different because these guys are different, then why wasn't the game plan different?
I actually kind of think they overdid it. I'm not trying to be hypocritical because I said on pregame keys, if you were able to hear it, that
sorry about that. We didn't know the Wi-Fi in here was that bad.
Yeah, that I would have liked to see them
for a telecommunications stadium. I thought it would have been better.
Right. I wanted to see them throw in a wrinkle or two. There were a lot of wrinkles. Like, some of them worked, some of them didn't. But now part of me questions, like, did you overburden your team, especially a team that was missing its best player, had a brand new starting quarterback, and you decided on a whim to start a new offensive lineman and move a guy to a different position? Maybe you should have just kind of ran what your offense has been for most of the year, which is like physical gap scheme, run game, work some play action passes. Like, there were times throughout the season where I thought that worked really well, and it did seem like the offense was hitting its stride. And then they just like kind of bagged a lot of that. And I don't know, maybe that's field position stuff. They got Ryan Day out of what he wanted to call. I'm not sure, but the plan felt disjointed to me. And I guess that's likely to happen when you lose your starting quarterback unexpectedly. But it was just disappointing, I think. I'm not trying to repeat myself, but if that's the effort you're putting out there and that's the plan you're putting out there with a month to prepare, it doesn't inspire a lot of confidence in the staff's ability to put a good plan together.
And this, as we've said over and over, I'm going to repeat it, it's 100% on the staff. And Ryan Day is at the top of that pyramid, and he has to make the hard decisions. There cannot be any kicking that can down the road. It's gone far enough. Okay? Like, this is the most pivotal offseason that he's ever going to have. And we probably said that last year, but now that's tenfold. You've lost 3 times in a row to Michigan, didn't win the Big Ten, got a 2-game losing streak that you're carrying into 2024.
Second year in a row that you have that going on.
You have people on your coaching staff who don't show up to a meeting during bowl week. I don't see how that is allowable in this profession, especially if they might manage the most important position on your roster. Cannot happen. There's no excuse for it.
Well, I didn't know about what you're talking about, so I'm just going to say, yeah, I agree. And I think that this is, like we've said before, like, Ryan Day's not going to be fired, right? Next year, that conversation is different, and I think everyone knows it. Like, there's a reason that he and this staff are working so hard to get these 7 or 8 guys to say, hey, we're coming back. Because next year is not just the defining year of Ryan Day's Ohio State tenure. This is the only head coaching job he's ever had. So it's not like you go out there and lose to Michigan for a 4th straight time and get fired and get a better job. You know what I mean? Like, this is your moment. And you need to prove that you are a head coach capable of running, as the CEO, the biggest brand in college sports. And you are now on the clock. And I don't know that it's something that you can do easily, but that's the job. Like, this isn't going to be an easy month for Ohio State. There are tough decisions and conversations that have to happen.
Can we go back to the coach's press conference then on Thursday when Eli Drinkwitz was asked about giving up play calling and his well thought out answer about him not feeling like he was putting the program in the best position to succeed, nor was he putting himself in position to empower the players or his staff to be the best it can be. And he gave it up. And guess what? Missouri had the best season it's had under Eli Drinkwitz. And I'm not saying that's an automatic magic bullet to get Ohio State to a different level than it's at right now. But this isn't working. We think that we have thought that Ryan Day needs to transition more into that CEO role, get a better handle on everything happening in his program, make tougher decisions. I think have his finger on the pulse a little better of everything that he does at the moment. And I thought this was like another example of that. Like they just an entire side of the ball, the one that he oversees, by the way, just like kind of wasn't ready to play today. And even in light of personnel shortcomings and not having your best guy, like that matters. Yes, maybe that means you don't put your best foot forward. But this was the worst they played all year, and they had a month to prepare for it.
It looked like they believed they could roll the helmets out there and that they were just going to win this game. And again, I understand Devin Brown getting hurt changes some of the calculus. The offense didn't look like it had any idea what it was doing when he was on the field either. So, the hit that he basically got when he fumbled down inside of the 5-yard line.
He caught a real break on that, by the way, because he did not recover that.
Yeah, and that's the same exact hit just from the other side that Lincoln Keenholz fumbled on the end of the game. Ohio State just didn't adjust. Free runners all day by Missouri.
Super aggressive defensive plan, right? But you got they never really did anything to counter.
So they were aggressive on both sides of the ball, and I think that they just knew they could be because Ohio State has been conservative, and it's time to stop that. And that is not just on the field. That is off the field. That is in the conversations with the staff. That is everywhere else. This last month has been a bear. Everyone's dealt with the recruiting and the transfer portal and all the other stuff, and didn't seem to affect Missouri staff. So there's no excuse for it to have affected Ohio State the way it did. And there's a whole lot of time to run an autopsy on this entire season. But when you're talking about just tonight, like that's inexcusable.
Yeah, just tonight was 14-3, Missouri beating Ohio State in the Cotton Bowl. We're all heading back to the great state of Ohio tomorrow, but I think we're going to squeeze in a little bit more coverage, maybe one more show tomorrow, start breaking this down and moving forward as 2023, the season comes to a close and now the calendar year winding down as well. There's just a lot to get to. So we'll keep doing that, and we appreciate you joining us for Snap Judgments right now. Brought to you by Byers Auto. It's too big of a hurry. I'll slow down to get to the finish line. That's Bill Landis and Jeremy Birmingham. I'm Austin Ward. We really appreciate you hanging with us all year for coverage, and we got more coming your way. Have a great night. We'll see you tomorrow.